I'm your host Aakash, Beri, and in the studio we have with us Dr. Zakir Naik. Dr. Zakir Naik has been given the exclusion order by the Home Secretary of the UK government to prevent him from entering UK. Dr. Zakir Naik, the eminent speaker from Mumbai, India, is respected world over for his enlightening and convincing efforts of promoting similarities between major faiths based on converging values for a common platform of peace that exists between the religious scriptures, including the Bible, Vedas, Torah, and the glorious Quran. As a student of comparative religion, Dr. Zakir Naik has worked tirelessly for the common good amongst people of all faiths, engaging in constructive debate and dialogue. These discussions have been hugely successful and have resulted in much progress towards a better understanding of Islam, as well as enhanced harmony between people of different beliefs, dispelling fears and misunderstandings. Dr. Zakir Naik is undoubtedly an opponent of terrorism and as such has often spoken out against all acts of violence and violent extremism. He has emphatically condemned the killing of civilians and is one of the world's regular noted orators on this topic. We have with us in the studio Dr. Zakir Naik, and we would like to know from him what are his views regarding the exclusion order. Welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
Sir, you were supposed to visit UK for a lecture tour. So can you give us in detail, tell us in detail about this lecture tour, and also was it your first visit to UK as a part of the lecture tour?
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi sahbihi ajmain, amma ba'd. I've been traveling to UK for the past 15 years, and I've been to UK more than 10 times, and I've given lectures in several cities of UK. I've given several lectures in London, in Birmingham, in Bradford, in Manchester, in Glasgow, in Cardiff, and many other cities of UK. So this was not supposed to be my first lecture tour to UK. And this particular trip, it was supposed to have 3 lectures of mine. The first one was supposed to be held in Sheffield Arena in Sheffield on the 25th of June. That's on Friday evening. The second was supposed to be held in the prestigious Wembley Arena in London on the 26th of June, that's a Saturday. And the last was supposed to be held in the National Exhibition Centre, that is the LG Arena in Birmingham, on the 27th of June, that's Sunday evening. So these 3 lectures are supposed to be held. And the topic of my first lecture in Sheffield Arena was supposed to be Understanding Islam and Peace. And the second lecture in Wembley Arena, the topic was Universal Brotherhood. And the third lecture in Birmingham NEC, it was supposed to be Freedom of Expression and Islamic Perspective.
Sir, could you also tell us what is the background of this exclusion order which has been served to you by the British government?
It actually initially started, there was an article that came more than 2 weeks back on 30th of May 2010 in a newspaper by the name of Sunday Times. And the title of that article was Muslim Preacher of Hate Let into Britain. And the same article quoted many of my speeches out of context. They misquoted me and tried to prove that I am a person who promotes terrorism. And later on, immediately the next day, the same article was reproduced and rehashed by 4 or 5 different newspapers of UK, including Daily Star, Daily Express, Sheffield Telegraph, and some other newspaper. And because of this, this was one of the reasons that put pressure on this new conservative government to prevent me from entering. And the article said that how has this new government permitted me to enter UK to give a series of lectures, and they tried to portray that I'm a person who promotes terrorism and violence.
Okay. So when were you officially informed about this exclusion order?
The first time that I was officially told about this exclusion order from the Home Secretary was 2 days back on the 17th of June. And this order was passed on 16th of June. And I received a phone call early in the morning, day for yesterday, that is the 17th of June, from the British High Commission, telling me that I got a letter from the Home Secretary of UK, and she has excluded your entry into UK.
And so what do you think are the possible reasons for this exclusion order being given to you, which prevents you from entering UK?
I feel that because today Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. It is the fastest growing religion in the Western countries, including UK. I feel this may be one of the major reasons that the new UK government does not want Islam to spread in UK. And they know very well that amongst all the Muslim speakers, the speaker that gets the maximum audience throughout the world, wherever he travels, it is Dr. Zakir Naik. So I feel that I was made a scapegoat.
Okay.
And because there was a pressure on this new government, I think it was a political decision. It was not a legal decision. They know very well, the Home Office knows very well that I'm a person who normally is against terrorism. I'm a person who speaks against violence. I think it was a pressure on the new government because they used to always oppose the previous government that why do they allow Muslim speakers to come in. So now because of this article that came in the newspaper and there was a political pressure, they were forced. And what they did, that they quoted me out of context and they killed two birds with one stone. First, they prevented the true message of Islam to spread in UK and they don't want Islam to spread. And secondly, because of misquoting me, they try to prove that I'm a person who promotes terrorism so that they can prove to the world that this government is against terrorism. So I think it was a political decision.
So according to the few press releases, the UK Home Secretary has prevented you from entering UK because of the following statements, like every Muslim should be a terrorist, and the statement supporting Osama bin Laden, and also Western women make themselves more susceptible to rape by wearing revealing clothes. So what are your comments on them?
As far as the three statements you have mentioned, only two were mentioned out of the four that they gave reasons in the letter which excluded me. The first one is absolutely out of context. As far as the second statement is concerned, of me supporting Osama bin Laden, it is again out of context and it is manipulated. And the third statement wasn't mentioned in the letter which they told me.
Okay. So according to you, which are the statements which actually the UK Home Secretary found objectionable? And could you also clarify each one of them?
Well, I feel that what she has given in the media is different than the letter what was presented to me. What was presented to media is just one statement. And the official exclusion order which I received from the Home Secretary by hand delivery, I'll read it to you, it's verbatim. The Home Secretary has considered whether, in light of this approach, you should be excluded from the UK. After careful consideration, on 16th June 2010, she personally directed that you should be excluded from the UK on the grounds that your presence here would not be conducive to the public good. The Home Secretary notes that you have made the following statements amongst others. And she has pointed out 4 statements from my lectures which she finds as objectionable. And inshallah, I'll give reply to each one of them. The first statement that she found objectionable, it's in quote, as far as terrorist is concerned, this is my quotation, what she has given. As far as terrorist is concerned, I tell the Muslims that every Muslim should be a terrorist. What is the meaning of the word terrorist? Terrorist by definition means a person who terrorizes. When a robber sees a policeman, he's terrified. So for a robber, the policeman is a terrorist. So in this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist to the robber. Every Muslim should be a terrorist to each and every antisocial element. I'm aware that terrorist more commonly is used for a person who terrorizes an innocent person. In this context, no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. The Muslim should selectively terrorize the antisocial elements. And many times, 2 different labels are given to the same activity of the same individual. Before any person gives any label to any individual, for any of his actions, we have to first analyze for what reason is he doing that. Now, reading in context, I don't have to give any clarification that I'm not promoting terrorism. I'm saying very clearly that no Muslim should ever kill any innocent human being. What she does, she picks up a statement of mine out of context and says, Dr. Zakir Naik says, every Muslim should be a terrorist. It's absolutely out of context. Okay. Because I give in the context and she knows the context. But to the press, she is only mentioning one of my statements. But in my letter, she gives the context. The reason I feel is that if she gives the full context in the press, it would be obvious that I'm not promoting terrorism. But she knows that I'm going to challenge this exclusion order in the High Court of UK. That's the reason in my letter, she has mentioned the full thing, so she can say that she's not quoting out of context. So if she really was truthful, she should have given the full paragraph what she has written in my letter to the press. Because the paragraph clearly states that terrorist means a person who terrorizes. And in this context, when a robber sees a policeman, he's terrified. So for the robber, the policeman is a terrorist. So in this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist. Whenever a robber sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. whenever robber sees any anti-social element, he should be terrified. And I further go on to clarify that I know more commonly the word terrorist is used for a person who terrorizes an innocent human being. In this context, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. I'm very clear. I have to tell the press that she has excluded me from entering UK because I said that no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. I go to the press and say that she has banned me, she has excluded me from UK because she objected on my one sentence that I said no Muslim should even terrorize a single innocent human being. So what I feel, it's out of context. And there may be people who will say, then why do you use such language? See, this is English language. And if you hear my original lecture, it was talking about an article that came in Times of India in 2003, talking about a very famous inspector by the name of Inspector Angre. And the article says that Inspector Angre terrorizes the underworld. So in this context, I have said that this word terrorist means a person who terrorizes. So in this context, I said that whenever a robber sees a policeman, he is terrified. So in context, it is very clear. I'm telling the Muslims that you should see to it that the anti-social element gets scared of the Muslim. At the same time, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. It's absolutely clear. So I don't see any reason that why should this statement be objectionable to the UK government. And the second statement that she feels is objectionable, that she quotes, and she says, and she quotes me, that beware of Muslims saying Osama bin Laden is right or wrong. I reject them. We don't know. But if you ask my view, if given the truth, if he's fighting the enemies of Islam, I'm for him. I don't know what he's doing. I'm not in touch with him. I don't know him personally. I read the newspaper. If he's terrorizing the terrorist, if he's terrorizing America, the terrorist, the biggest terrorist, he's following Islam. In bracket, source, YouTube, 2006. When I read this statement which had come earlier in the UK press, I immediately went to the YouTube and I saw, and I realized that this lecture of mine was not given in 2006, it was given in 1996. So imagine they are attributing this lecture to 2006, and any normal person, you don't have to be an intelligent CID or belong to Scotland Yard to see that you can easily see that I'm looking 15 years younger. And there you can see my physique and you can see my face. They can easily judge that it's an old video. And this was given in Singapore. And I've never been to Singapore in 2006. This lecture of mine was a lecture given in Singapore in 1996. And it was shot by the local organizers. And later on, some prejudiced group, what they did, they manipulated and they cut paste my lecture and they presented on the YouTube. Now, how can a clipping of YouTube presented by an unknown person without any proof can act as evidence against me? What I say, this clip is manipulated, and irrespective whether it's manipulated or not, this statement of mine that they're shown on YouTube was not given in 2006. It was given in 1996, which was 5 years before 9/11 attack. So how can they attribute this statement? And if you read in context, if this has been mentioned 5 years before, in no way can you attribute this statement to 9/11. And that's the explanation I gave in the press release, that this was manipulated. And this can never be as an evidence, because you cannot take a clipping from YouTube which shows cuts in between. So I feel that this is novice on the part of the UK government to take a clipping from YouTube and then attributing it to 2006 and then saying that I said this and I'm supporting Osama bin Laden. There are many journalists and many people in question and answer session, they ask me, what are my views regarding Osama bin Laden? And I always say that I don't know. I cannot base my views on what BBC and CNN say, because the Quran clearly mentions in Surah Hujurat, chapter number 49, verse number 6, that whenever you get information, you check it up before you pass it on to the third person. I cannot base my views on BBC or CNN, otherwise I'll have to say that he's a terrorist. So therefore, when anyone asks me the question, what are your views regarding Osama bin Laden, I say, I don't know. He's neither my friend, He's neither my enemy. I neither consider him as a terrorist, neither do I consider him like a saint. I'm neutral. I said, I don't know. Just because I say I don't know, that does not mean that I'm a supporter of bin Laden. Just because I say I don't know, they can attribute that I'm promoting terrorism. It's totally unacceptable. And I would like to ask a simple question to the Home Secretary of UK. That suppose, hypothetically, the UK government arrests bin Laden today. And suppose he's going to have a trial after a few days in the UK High Court. Before the trial takes place, if a journalist or if the Home Secretary, Theresa May, herself asks the judge who's going to take the trial of Osama bin Laden, what are your views about Osama bin Laden? Is he responsible for 9/11? Is he a terrorist? What will be the reply of that judge? What will he say? But naturally he'll say that let the trial take place. And only after evidence is posed and he verifies the evidence can he say, even though he may be the judge of the High Court or the judge of Supreme Court, in any country, he will give his verdict only after the trial is over. So similarly, because I have a large following, there are hundreds of millions of people who watch my program on different satellite channels, I have to be careful. Just because I say I don't know, and that will be the same statement given by the Supreme Court judge or by the High Court judge, I don't know. So that time, will the Home Secretary exclude the High Court judge or the Supreme Court judge from UK? So in the same way, I being a responsible citizen, I being a responsible person, I have not verified all the claims. And I'm not the judge. If any court arrests him and convicts him after proof, then there are chances. No one has arrested him. These are only evidences given. Now those who have the evidence and they are convinced, if they blame him, they have a right. I'm not objecting why are they blaming them. But why should I? So I, as a good Muslim who has not verified these claims, have not done research on it, the best reply a Muslim should give is, I don't know. Now, those who have proved, those who are calling, it's different. Similarly, when the High Court judge is asked, he as an intelligent person will say, I don't know, unless he undergoes the trial and verifies the evidences and has a cross-examination, then he can say for sure whether he is innocent or is responsible, whether he is a terrorist or whether he is a saint. Her third statement that she feels was objectionable, that she quotes me saying that how can you ever justify killing innocent people? But in the same breath, as condemning those responsible, we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan and Lebanon. In bracket, as reported by the Manchester Evening News, 21st August 2006, as part of a speech you gave, that means I gave, at the Expo Islamia conference in Manchester. Immediately I went to the net and I typed and I went on to the Manchester Evening News, 21st August 2006, and I was shocked. Immediately before this statement, I said that I condemn the attack that took place in 9/11, took place on 7/7, 11/7, the Twin Towers, the London bombing, the serial bomb blast in Bombay. But I said you should not put a full stop here. And the report says that. But in the same breath, I even condemn, then I said this, we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan and Lebanon, whether in context or not. So why is she quoting part of it? Even if I agree, I only made this statement that we must condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon. Does the UK government does not want me to condemn the innocent people killed in Afghanistan, innocent people killed in Iraq, innocent people killed in Lebanon? She says it is the privilege for a person to enter UK and she has the right to prevent anyone, and I do agree with her. That means if any innocent life is saved in UK, if he's a British national, it's a privilege. And if an innocent UK citizen is killed, then the killer should be condemned. But if thousands of innocent lives are being taken in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and if I'm condemning the killers, she's objecting. So does it mean that the UK government wants that the innocent people in Afghanistan should be killed? The innocent people in Iraq should be killed. The innocent people in Lebanon should be killed. I don't understand what is objectionable in this statement. Do you find anything objectionable that we must also condemn those responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Lebanon? I don't really find what is objectionable. I am 100% condemning any innocent human being killed, whether it be in UK, whether it be in America, whether India, Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan, whether it be Muslim, whether it be non-Muslim. The fourth statement that she quoted of mine, which she found objectionable, and I'm quoting, strongest in enmity towards the Muslims are the Jews and the pagans. It, in bracket the Quran, does not say that the Muslims should fight the Jews. The Jews, by nature as a whole, will be against Muslims. There are many Jews who are good to Muslims. But as a whole, the Quran tells us, as a whole, they will be our staunchest enemy. Peace TV, recorded on YouTube. Now, this statement is of mine. And this was in context to a quotation I gave of the Quran, of Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 82, which does say that strongest in enmity towards the believers are the pagans and the Jews. And the closest to the believers are those who say that we are Christians. So in this context, but I further went on to clarify that the Quran does not say that Muslims should fight the Jews. And I further said, there are many Jews who are good to Muslims. But as a whole, the Quran tells us that the Jews will be the staunchest enemy. So this is a verse of the Quran. But I'm going out of the way to say that does not mean that the Muslims should fight the Jew. It does not mean that 100% all the Jews will be against Muslims. So what is wrong in this statement? This is a verse of the Quran. We as Muslims, we believe this is a word of God. And you can see around the world that as a whole, you can see around in the world, whether it be in Israel, whether it be other parts of the world, and the Quran is right in making that statement, that as a whole, the Jews will be against the Muslims. So I want to know that these four statements of mine, what is objectionable? It is absolutely condemning violence and condemning terrorism in unequivocal terms. But what I feel that this was more of a political decision, and the government knows very well, and the world knows that I have given several lectures against terrorism, against violence, and I've quoted the Quran many times. That Quran says in Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 32, that if anyone kills any other human being, whether it be Muslim or non-Muslim, unless it be for murder or for spreading corruption in the land, it is as though he has killed the whole of humanity. And if any person saves any human being, it is as though he has saved the whole of humanity. So in unequivocal terms, I have condemned terrorism several times, and I have been the chief speaker in many of the peace conferences. And I have been called by several heads of states, not only of Muslim governments, even non-Muslim governments. I've met many heads of states. So does the UK government want to tell that all these heads of states and all these intelligence, they are calling a person who promotes terrorism, they're calling a person who promotes violence? Is the UK government giving a message to the world that all the heads of states that meet me regularly, that they are fools? So what message is the UK government giving to the world? And I have traveled to several countries of the world, Muslims and non-Muslims, and I've met many government officials. They call me, they invite me, we have a lunch, we have a dinner, we have a tea. So does the UK government want to give a message that all the other governments are fools and only their intelligence is correct?
So, sir, after all this has happened to you, what's your further plan of action, immediate plan of action?
Our immediate plan of action is that we are going to challenge the exclusion order of the Home Office, done by the Home Secretary, in the UK High Court. We will file a judicial revision. What I believe, I have more faith in the judicial system rather than the politicians. I have more faith in the judicial system of India. I also have faith in the judicial system of UK rather than the politicians. And inshallah, hopefully, in the next few days, in the next week, we have hired a team, a battery of very good solicitors and a battery of lawyers, as well as QCs, known as Queen Counsels. And very shortly, within the next few days, the next couple of days, we'll be filing a revision, a judicial revision. And we'll take the matter to the High Court and we'll challenge the exclusion order of the UK government. And inshallah, this order would be reversed.
Sir, you must have received, I'm sure, hundreds of phone calls and emails from the fans throughout the world. So any message for them particularly? All your
Yes,
fans?
you're right that I've received hundreds of phone calls in the past couple of days and thousands of emails from my fans and from different parts of the world. And many of them said that they're sad, they're angry, they want to protest. So I said, even if you want to protest, please see to it that the protest is peaceful. Don't make it violent, otherwise it will spoil the name of Islam. There are many doctors, scholars, lawyers, politicians from different parts of the world, they phoned me. And they wrote emails, and they said, what can we do? And they are very angry. And if you go and have a look at the website where these articles have come, mostly in the UK press, there is always on the website, there is a comment page where you can give your comments. So most of the comments, more than 95%, all of them are saying that what the UK government has done, they totally disagree with it. Because these people have seen me on the television. They said, how could they blame a person who's been speaking against terrorism, who's been speaking against violence for so many years unequivocally? So surely, if the government really goes and reads the comments of all these thousands of people, and what we feel that if there is a protest, it should be peaceful, it should not be violent, and we should express our anger in a peaceful way.
That's a great thought, sir. Sir, you believe that this whole exclusion order is a political decision. So any message particularly you would like to give to the UK politicians?
Yes, I do think it's a political decision. I may be wrong, I'm a human being, but that's my opinion. So what my message to the politicians of UK, whether they're Muslims or non-Muslims, this is the time of test. Whether do they support the truth or do they support a political decision? So if he is a politician in UK, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, whether belonging to the ruling party or the opposition party, the truth is very evident. It is a test for them that do they support the truth or do they support the political decision so that they secure their seat.
Okay. And sir, what about the other politicians, like politicians of India and the rest of the world? What would you like to tell them in particularly?
My message to them, and I did receive many calls from politicians from India and from other parts of the world, and they said that we will get together and we will give our letter to the UK government saying that what they have done is totally wrong. And the many Indian politicians who phoned me, but naturally, as far as the Indian politicians are concerned, that they should write a letter or a protest against the UK government, knowing that they have called an Indian who has always been speaking against terrorism, against violence, unequivocally. And I also happen to be in the list of the 100 most influential or powerful people in India. They ranked me last year 82 and this year 89th in the list. And last year I was third on the top 10 spiritual gurus, and this year I was on top. So maligning an Indian who speaks against violence and against terrorism, to say that is promoting terrorism, it is an insult for the Indian government. So surely I believe that very shortly the Indian government should write a letter of protest that what they have done is wrong, and they should write a protest that they should reverse the decision of the exclusion of mine to UK.
That's a very thoughtful thought. And sir, thank you so much for your time. That was my last question of the evening. And that was Dr. Zakir Naik. And he's pretty much answered all the questions put in front of him. And it's just a waiting game. We wish him all the best. And that's all from the studio. This is Aakash Beri signing off. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to one and all. This is Aakash Beri, and we are very fortunate to have Dr. Zakir Naik in the studio with us. Dr. Zakir Naik is renowned for his enlightening and convincing presentations on the similarities between major faiths, and is world-renowned for his attempts in bringing people together on one common platform of peace. This program is in reference to the article on Dr. Zakir Naik that appeared in the Sunday Times on May 30th, 2010, entitled "Muslim Preacher of Hate is Let into Britain," which was later rehashed by other newspapers of the UK with different headlines, such as "Allowed into UK, the preacher who backs bin Laden," "Terror backer can enter UK despite stories ban pledge," "Islamic extremist Zakir Naik to start too preaching hate," "Terror jibe clerics peace talks at Sheffield Arena." The question is, should a person be considered hate monger for bringing forth verses from different religious scriptures that speak of common terms and similarities? Most topics of Dr. Zakir Naik's speeches substantiate this fact. Example, similarities between Islam and Christianity, similarities between Hinduism and Islam, concept of God in major religions, etc. They do bridge in the gap between Islam and other religions. It is probably one of the best ways to eradicate the animosity from the hearts of the adherents of various religions of the world, that is, bring them to common terms. We have in studio with us Dr. Zakir Naik. Hello, sir.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
So I would like to ask you, the Sunday Times quoted in the issue dated May 30th, 2010, that you said Western women are more susceptible to rape by wearing revealing clothes, due to which they call you a misogynist, that is, the one who hates women. Any comments on that?
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain, amma ba'd. As far as the Sunday Times quoting me, saying that Western women are more susceptible to rape because they were revealing clothes, and they call me a misogynist, that's the person who hates women, it is ironical. I have given several lectures talking about women's rights. And there's a very famous talk of mine, Women's Rights in Islam, modernizing or outdated, and women's rights in Islam, protected or subjugated. And because of that, you find large audiences of mine, quite a large percentage are women. And you find that after my talks, there are many non-Muslims accept Islam. And amongst the non-Muslims accepting Islam, more women accept Islam after my talk rather than men. So if this is the case that I hate women, why would these women, after my talk, accept Islam? This surely shows that what Sunday Times thinks about me is totally the vice versa. Regarding me making the statement, and I did make that statement, that Western women are more susceptible to rape because they wear revealing clothes, it's correct. But it is not only Western women. Any woman, whether it be Indian woman, whether it be Arab woman, it may be women of any nationality. When they wear revealing clothes, they are susceptible to being molested. They are susceptible to being raped. So I was saying in concern for the Western women, not to speak against them, but I want to see to it that no woman in the world, whether it be Indian, Arab or Western, should be molested or should be raped. And I give an example in my talks. And very often, and many times I've given this example, that suppose there are two twin sisters who are very beautiful, or equally beautiful. And both of them, they are walking down the streets of Bombay or any city in the world. One of them is wearing the Islamic hijab, that is complete body covered. The only parts that are seen are the face and the hands up to the wrist. And the other twin sister, she is wearing the Western clothes, mini skirts or shorts, and this is where they get the statement from. When I say Western clothes, and I say mini skirts or shorts. And if both of these twin sisters are walking down the streets of Bombay, and around the corner, there is a hooligan who's waiting for a catch, who's going to tease a girl. My question to the audience is that which girl will he tease? Will he tease the girl wearing the Islamic hijab, that's complete body cover except the face and hands up to the wrist, or the girl wearing a mini skirts or short, or wearing a top with a deep neck? And 100%, wherever I've traveled, all the audiences have said, the girl wearing the Western clothes, the mini skirts and shorts with the deep neck would be teased rather than the twin sister who's equally beautiful with the Islamic hijab. So what is wrong? So it is not only talking about Western women. I respect all the women and I tell them that they should not wear revealing clothes, irrespective whether they're Indian, Arabs, or whether they're Western, because I don't want any woman to be molested or be raped. And the irony of it is, the same newspaper, Sunday Times, who speaks against me and calls me a misogynist, a person who hates women, the same newspaper, they published an article more than a year back. And they did a survey, and the article came on 9th of March 2009, more than a year back. And they did a survey which was conducted in the UK for the Home Office under the heading, Women Should Be Hit for Wearing Sexy Clothing in Public. 1 in 7 believe. I'll have to repeat. The heading of the article was, Women Should Be Hit for Wearing Sexy Clothing in Public. 1 in 7 believe. And it further says, the article, about a quarter of people believe that wearing sexy or revealing clothing should lead to a woman being held partly responsible for being raped or sexually assaulted. The same newspaper, if it gives this article, if it says that I am a misogynist, then I would say the same Times was a misogynist 1 year back. Aren't they promoting domestic violence? aren't they speaking against Western women? So why have they double standards? And again, prior to this, a few years back, the same newspaper, The Times, they carried another article on the 21st of November 2005, which was titled, Women Still Held to Blame for Rape, which reveals that many people believe that flirting or wearing revealing clothes is an invitation to sexual predators. These inverted commas. I'm quoting from the newspaper. The survey also found that 26% of adults believe that a woman was partially or totally responsible for being raped if she was wearing sexy or revealing clothes. Now, I did not use the word sexy because it is too objectionable for me. I only used the word revealing clothes, which is a modest language. Because in my speech, I want to use language which is, acceptable, rather than use words which may sound a bit obscene. So just because 26% of the Britishers, in which many are women, they believe that wearing revealing clothes is inviting the men so that the woman can be raped. So do you mean to say that even these 26% are misogynists and among them there are women? So why these double standards? So what I'm saying, that people staying in glass houses should not throw stones at others. So this exposes the double standards of the Western media. So when I say it, they feel bad. When 26% of the Britishers say, then it is fine, they are not misogynists. When an Indian says, it is misogynist. Why? Why the double standards? That's the reason I care for all the women in the world. And I want no woman, whether she be Indian, Arab, or British, that they should be teased, they should be molested, or they should be raped.
Women should be considered respectable for all of us. So another Times quote which actually got into controversy was, they mentioned the execution of Muslims who changed their faith. So what's your say on that?
Yes, this article also claimed that I call for execution of Muslims who change their faith. It is totally a misquotation. And yes, what I say, that there are some Muslim scholars who say that if a Muslim changes faith, he should be put to death. But I believe that if a Muslim changes faith to any other religion, the general ruling is not death penalty. And I quote in my answers, once when there was a Muslim who changed his faith, and because of his activities and behaviors, the Prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, ﷺ, he had ordered that the person should be put to death. Later on, Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, he approached the Prophet and he asked that this person should be pardoned, he should be given protection, and the Prophet gave him protection and even pardoned him. This is mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawud, volume number 3, in the book of Hudud, hadith number 4345. So based on this hadith, but natural, death penalty is not a blanket rule for any Muslim who changes his faith to any other religion. So I in fact say that some scholars say that any Muslim who changes his faith should be put to death, but I say this is not the general ruling. And the best example is that I was in Maldives just 2 weeks back. And in my second lecture, Maldives is a country which has 100% Muslim citizens. I was a guest of the government. I was called by the Ministry of Islamic Affairs. And one questioner, he said that he was born in a Muslim family, his parents were practicing Muslims, but he does not believe in any religion. He is not a Muslim. And then he asked me, what is the ruling for a person like me in Islam? Now I knew this was a mischievous question. And he expected me to say death penalty. I didn't say that. I asked him a counter question, that what do you feel according to your knowledge? He said he had read books on Islam, etc. I asked him, what do you feel according to your knowledge is the penalty for a person like you? He said death penalty. I told him he's wrong. Because Quran says in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse number 256, La ikrah fid din, there is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. So this is not a blanket rule that death penalty should be given to a person who is a Muslim and changes his faith. And after that, I gave the answer and I tried to convince him. He was seen speaking to some other audience and he provoked certain audience. And as I told you that 100% of the citizens of Maldives are Muslims, they started hitting him. And he ran for his life. At that time, I stood up and said, I told the audience to calm down. And I again quoted the verse of the Quran, Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 256, saying that La ikrah fid din, there is no compulsion in religion. And because of that, he was saved. So leave aside giving death penalty, I said you should not even beat him. So these are my views. So how could Sunday Times quote me? From where they get this? And they say that I said these statements in some YouTube clip. Now, how can they rely on a YouTube clip which can be easily manipulated? And I doubt, I challenge them to show any such statement of mine in Peace TV. What they do, they go to YouTube, and this YouTube, any Tom, Dick and Harry, any person who may not like me, they may manipulate my speech, cut, paste it, and put it onto the YouTube. So that is no evidence that what they see on the YouTube is what I've actually said.
Okay. So another statement which actually created quite a havoc in the media was that every Muslim should be a terrorist. That's how it was interpreted by the media. So what do you have to say about that? How do you justify that?
This again is out of context. Okay. This is a statement when Muslims are maligned that Muslims are terrorists. I say that terrorist means a person who causes terror. And I give the example that if a robber sees a policeman, he is terrified. So for the robber, the policeman is a terrorist. In this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist. Whenever a robber sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. Whenever any antisocial element sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. Every Muslim should be a terrorist to the antisocial element. But I further go on to say that I'm aware that terrorist commonly means a person who terrorizes an innocent human being. In this context, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. Now this Sunday Times picks up one statement of mine from an answer I've given out of context and says Zakir says every Muslim should be terrorist. I've clearly said that terrorist commonly means a person who terrorizes an innocent human being. In this context, no Muslim should terrorize a single innocent human being. And it's very easy. For example, if I'm taking an interview and if I ask you that is robber a good person? But naturally you'll say robber is not a good person. And if I chop off the knot, it will sound that robber is a good person. And if I show you your own interview, you would think it's a slip of the tongue. Actually, you said robber is not a good person. But when I chop off the knot, it sounds like robber is a good person. And you would think it's a slip of the tongue. It's not. So doing these things is so easy. So this is exactly what they've done. They've picked up half my sentence and presenting to the world as though I'm saying that every Muslim should be a terrorist. So what happens that this is how the media tries to malign people who are popular and are trying to spread peace. And I'm aware that there are certain young Muslims in different parts of the world who are being misguided by certain elements. And they have been told that you should spread terrorism, it will be good for you, it's good for the religion. My speeches actually prevent such misguided people to go on the wrong path. In fact, I'm very unequivocal that Quran says clearly in Surah Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 32, that if anyone kills any other human being, whether it be Muslim or non-Muslim, unless it be for murder or for spreading corruption in the land, it is as though he has killed the whole of humanity. And if any person saves any other human being, it is as though he has saved the whole of humanity. So Quran is very much clear and unequivocal that killing any innocent human being is as though you have killed the whole of humanity. And I've said this many times, that any Muslim killing any innocent human being, whether it be a Muslim or non-Muslim, it's totally unacceptable in Islam.
So another statement which came into limelight and created quite a few disturbances was the Sunday Times alleged that you support bin Laden and you blame George Bush for the 9/11 hijackings and call it an inside job. Sir, if you actually mentioned it, do you have any proof for such kind of a claim?
These two statements have been taken from two different video clips of mine. And very often I'm asked by the questioners after my talk and by journalists that what are your views regarding bin Laden? And I always say that if I have to give my judgment based on what I see in BBC and CNN, I'll have to agree that bin Laden is a terrorist. But the Quran says in Surah Hujurat, chapter number 49, verse number 6, that whenever you get a message, you check it up before you pass it to the third person. So based on this verse of the Quran, I cannot say anything, condemn anyone unless I've got sufficient proof.
Okay.
So therefore I say, I don't know bin Laden personally. Neither do I consider him a terrorist, neither do I consider him a saint. I say, I don't know. And that's the same question. Suppose the UK government today, if they arrest bin Laden, and before he undergoes the trial, suppose they put him to trial in the High Court or the Supreme Court, and before the trial takes place, if the Home Secretary, Theresa May, she asks the judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court judge that what are your views regarding bin Laden? Do you consider him to be a terrorist? What do you think will his reply be? But naturally, he'll say, I don't know. He will say, let the trial take place. You place the evidence. I'll verify the evidence. I'll cross-examine. Let the cross-examination take place. Then I'll give my verdict because he is a responsible person. He cannot just say, okay, fine, I have seen on BBC, I have seen on CNN. Why should there be a trial? Just put him to gallows. In a democratic country. So this is how a person who's responsible, who has a very high post, will behave. And this is exactly what I do. Because I know I've got more than 100 million people following me. I've got a large fanship. I cannot say anything. So when I say I don't know if the Home Secretary is condemning me, so tomorrow if they arrest bin Laden, and before the trial takes place, if the Supreme Court judge says, I don't know, I think she'll even deport him, saying that why is he supporting bin Laden? He's not supporting bin Laden. This is how a logical person, because in democracy you have to give everyone a chance. So I'm not saying bin Laden is a terrorist, neither am I saying he's a saint. I say I don't know. At the same time, those people who have sufficient proof, and those people who are convinced with the proof, if they say, fine, they can say. But why should I repeat? Why should anyone force some of their thought down my throat? So just because I say I don't know, that does not mean I'm supporting bin Laden.
Okay.
But in the same breath, I also say, whoever has done the 9/11, whoever the person is, that person is to be condemned. And that person is wrong. Whoever has done the 7/7 bombing in London, where more than 50 people were killed, he is to be condemned. Whoever has done the serial bomb blast in Bombay on 11th of July, where about 200 people were killed, those people should be condemned. I'm condemning the act. I cannot take the name because I don't know who did it. Regarding the second part of the question, that I have said that 9/11 was an inside job done by George Bush himself. This is in reply to a question that was asked to me after one of my talks that took place in 2006. The topic of my talk was, is terrorism a Muslim monopoly? And after my talk, there's a questioner who poses a question that, do you consider 9/11 to be an inside job? And in reply, I said that there was an article that came in Times of India on the 7th of September, 2006. The title of that article was, 75 professors believe 9/11 was an inside job. Okay. And in the article was mentioned that 75 professors and scientists, they claim that 9/11 was an inside job, and a few warmongers in the White House, in order to invade and take possession of the oil-rich countries, have planned this. So it was a report that came in Times of India. And furthermore, there are many documentaries available, like Loose Change, 9/11 Fahrenheit, and many documentaries which give various evidences to prove that 9/11 was an inside job. And they say the way the building came down, the Twin Towers, as though dynamites were planted, it cannot be possible that a plane hits the Twin Tower and the fuel completely can let the building crumble down. Immediately after the 9/11 attack, the person who built the building, the engineer, said, it's impossible. The temperature of the metal of the building to melt requires more than 2000 degrees centigrade. And the temperature of the fuel is hardly 800 to 1000 degrees. It can't be possible. Immediately, next day, he retracts his sentence and he says, no, it's possible. Another person who gives a similar sentence who does not retract, he is kicked out from the job. Many of the 75 scientists and professors, after they gave this statement, they were sent on a paid leave.
Okay.
So when we see all these evidences given by scientists and professors are more logical. than what you see on BBC and CNN. Yet, I'm saying they claim it was an inside job, not me. They claim it was done by White House. They claim it was done by George Bush. If you ask me, did George Bush did it? I will say, I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he did not. I cannot hold him responsible. The same way as the news that I see against bin Laden in BBC and CNN cannot make me condemn him surely that he's a terrorist. Similarly, when I see the documentary, which are much more scientific, much more logical than what evidence I see in BBC and CNN, yet I do not say that George Bush did it. I say maybe he did, maybe he did, I don't know.
But
I'm not saying...
Yeah, but you do believe in the evidences being shown on television about George Bush?
I see they are more convincing than the evidence showed against bin Laden, yet I say I don't know. Because to condemn anyone, I require solid proof. Otherwise, I am maligning a person. To praise a person is easy. Even if I, by mistake, praise a person, it's not a problem. But to condemn anyone or to speak against someone, unless I have solid proof, the Quran doesn't give me permission. So what standards I use for bin Laden, the same standard I'm using for George Bush. But on the other hand, there are many people in the world who have called George Bush as a terrorist. And Venezuela President Betty Williams, the Nobel Prize winner, Nobel Prize for Peace she got, George Galloway. So in that sense, there was a poll conducted in America where who should be the biggest terrorist. And they gave three options: Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, and George Bush. And do you know, in all the polls, George Bush won the polls lock, stock, battle. In one poll, he gets 78%, some polls he get 80%. Even the BBC conducted a poll. So this is what is the opinion of the people. And seeing what's happening, what I'm trying to say, that why are they misquoting me? I'm a man of truth. So before I condemn anyone, unless I've got solid proof, I'll not condemn him. So just because I say I don't know, that doesn't mean I'm supporting bin Laden.
So another question which everyone wants you to answer is that it is said that Rahil Abdul Rahman Sheikh, who is actually the prime suspect, and he's been suspected of being the commander in series of the train bombings which happened in Mumbai recently, like some time back, spent much of his time in the IRF library before the attacks. From where this link came up for?
Point number one, I don't know whether Rahil Sheikh was responsible for the serial train blast. I don't know. Irrespective whether he was or not. The claim in the media, I'm aware that some of the newspapers in India did say that Rahil used to visit the library of IRF. The point to be noted that the IRF library is a public library. Anyone is welcome, good, bad and ugly. I personally don't know Rahil Sheikh. I don't even know whether he came to the library or not. Even if he did come or did not come, even if he has attended, if he has come to the library, does it mean that he has been trained here? If you see his past record, surely he might have attended some school or some college or some university. Now, in college and university, they get direct instruction from the professors and teachers. In a public library, you don't get instruction, you just come and read a book and go. So if you have to blame out of the two, a public library or a school or a college, who will you blame more? You will blame the school or the college. I'm not trying to say that the school made him a terrorist. So this is how the media projects. First of all, I don't know Rahil Sheikh personally. I don't know whether he came to IRF or not. And if anyone comes to IRF, people are welcome. Good, bad, ugly, all types of people are welcome. And surely if they come to IRF library, they will come closer to the peace. So just blaming because a person, even if he visited, that, trying to malign, that, IRF has, though they don't say it, but indirectly they're hinting that as though he has been trained in IRF. Okay. This is how the media maligns without mentioning names.
So lastly, a very important question. The Sunday Times further claims that the American terror suspect Najibullah Zazi, arrested last year for planning suicide attacks on the New York subway, is said to have been inspired by your YouTube services. Do you think your speeches can actually inspire people to commit any kind of crime?
Firstly, I do not know who Najibullah Zazi is. I don't know him personally. I don't even know whether he was planning to do some suicide attack or some bombing in USA. I don't know him personally. I don't even know whether he was inspired or not. But if the report is saying that he was inspired, yes, my talks do inspire people towards the good. And there are hundreds and thousands of people I've stopped having alcohol. After hearing my talks, I have stopped having drugs, have stopped doing adultery and promiscuity. Many of my speeches have inspired hundreds and thousands of people towards the good. Regarding inspiring anyone, whether it be Najibullah, Zazi, or anyone else, to commit a terrorist act or killing innocent human being is totally not acceptable or believable, because in many of my talks, unequivocally, I have condemned terrorist attacks. I have condemned terrorism and I have condemned violence. And I've very often quoted the verse of the Quran of Surah Ma'idah chapter 5 verse number 32. It says that if anyone kills any other human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, unless it be for murder or spreading corruption in the land, it is as though he has killed the whole of humanity. And if any person saves a single human being, it is as though he has saved the whole of humanity. So Quran is absolutely unequivocal and clear that killing any innocent human being is totally prohibited. It is as though you have killed the whole of humanity. So where is the question of my lecture inspiring anyone to kill innocent human being or conduct a terrorist attack? And you may be aware that all the Muslims, 100%, they believe and they respect Prophet Muhammad. Now suppose you find a Muslim who is involved in some wrong activity, or maybe involved in killing innocent human being or a terrorist attack. You cannot say, okay, fine, because he loves Prophet Muhammad, he is inspired by Prophet Muhammad. That's the reason Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Nauz Billah, is responsible for conducting those evil acts. Fine, he may be inspired by Prophet Muhammad, but he may not be following him 100%. He may be following 10%, 20%, 50%. The evil act is his responsibility. You cannot blame that to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Because never in any of his sayings, in any hadith, has he ever said that kill innocent human beings. He never has promoted violence. Similarly, in my speech, never ever have I promoted violence. Never ever have I told people to do terrorist attacks. It is in fact, I am emphatic against violence and against terrorism.
But as you say, people at times misinterpret to what you say.
That's right, just to malign me because they know I'm popular, so that they know that I'm spreading the truth, and people are coming to my talks in large numbers, and they're coming towards Islam. So those people who are enemies of Islam, they want to malign me so that they reduce my influence over the audiences throughout the world.
I suppose, sir, that's a great response to the allegation put in front of you. So I suppose Dr. Zakir Naik has responded to all the questions and allegations put in front of him. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
It's my pleasure.
That's all for now, and have a great time ahead. Thank you so much.